Maya didn't flinch when the yelling started anymore. At 10 years old, she had learned that silence told her more than shouting ever could. She didn't measure fear by volume. She measured it by rhythm. A bottle smashed, 3 seconds of silence. Then a fist hit the wall. 5 more. Slurred threats followed like thunder after lightning. Her father's anger always came fast, like a storm. Sudden but never surprising. Their house sat at the edge of town like a secret everyone ignored. Once painted a bright, happy yellow, the walls now peeled like old skin. The windows rattled in the wind, but the creaks inside were worse. Maya's bedroom was the farthest from the kitchen. That didn't make it safe, just a little quieter. She kept a flashlight under her pillow. Not for monsters under the bed, but to see past broken glass and splintered furniture in the dark. She moved like a ghost, careful to avoid the floorboards. That groaned. He wasn't always like this. There were photos once him smiling, holding baby Maya, her mother's arms around them both. But memories fade, especially when they hurt. Her mother's voice was already a whisper in her mind. 2 years had passed since she walked out. She never came back. School didn't help. Teachers noticed how quiet she was, how she winced when someone raised their voice, but nothing ever came of it. In a small town, people like to pretend everything was fine. Maya stopped crying a long time ago. Tears had only made things worse. She had no pets, no friends, no siblings. Just a scarred teddy bear, a flashlight, and the weight of too many unspoken questions. Until one gray Tuesday changed everything. That day she didn't go straight home after school. Her father's truck was already in the driveway too early. Her stomach turned. She cut across the field behind the old Miller farm instead, a place kids at school said was haunted. Maya didn't believe in ghosts, but she understood pain. That felt real. She heard it before she saw it. A low, warning growl. Not loud, but deep, raw. She froze. 10 feet ahead, mostly hidden behind tall weeds and rusted fence posts, stood a German shepherd. Its coat was tangled. Ribs showed under thin fur. One of its back legs was chained to a collapsed beam of wood. The chain dug into its skin. The dog didn't bark, didn't lunge. It just stared at her. Maya slowly opened her backpack and pulled out half of her sandwich. She hadn't eaten it, not because she wasn't hungry, but because hunger was something she was used to. She set the sandwich on the ground and pushed it forward with her foot. The dog sniffed, limped forward. Its eyes never left hers. Not angry, not afraid, just tired. Just like hers, she crouched, heart pounding. "It's okay," she whispered. She didn't know if she was talking to the dog or herself. The shepherd didn't growl again, didn't eat right away either. But it didn't look away. For the first time in a long while, Maya felt seen. Not judged, not punished, just seen. The next day, she went back. She waited until her father passed out on the couch. Half a bottle tipped on the carpet, the TV buzzing with static. She slipped out the back door with a bruised arm and a slice of bread. The dog was still there. This time, it stood when it saw her. Its injured leg trembled as it stepped forward, slow and cautious. Maya held out the bread. The dog took it gently and backed away. That became their routine. Every day after school, before home, she visited the field. Some days she brought a boiled egg. Once, a piece of cheese wrapped in a napkin. He always waited, never too close. Always watching, she started talking to him. At first, barely a whisper. "Hi, sorry I'm late." He was mad again. Then more. Full sentences, stories, secrets she'd never dared to tell another soul. She gave him a name, Shadow, because no one sees you. She told him one afternoon, kneeling beside the fence. "You're like me. Some days she cried beside him. Other days she just sat there, silent, while he lay with his head on his paws, eyes half closed. He was always listening. Just like her, neither of them trusted easily. But in that quiet, forgotten field, something small and safe began to grow. Like a tiny green sprout pushing through cracked earth, a girl and a dog, both bruised, both forgotten. And finally, for the first time, not alone. Morning, Maya came to school with a split lip and a faded hoodie pull-it-tight around her neck. No one asked. Herdiker gave her a strange look, but said nothing. The counselor walked past her in the hallway, clipboard in hand, eyes elsewhere. At home, her father had lost his job at the warehouse. They said he'd shown up drunk one too many times. Now he spent his days sleeping or screaming, mostly both. Dinner was unpredictable. Sometimes a can of soup, sometimes nothing. Maya learned not to speak unless spoken to. But even silence became a trigger. You think you're better than me? He had spat one night, staggering toward her, acting all quiet like I don't exist. When the slap came, it knocked her sideways into the kitchen table. Her elbow hit the edge. She bit her tongue to keep from crying. That night, she didn't go to the field, Shackleton. Her leg hurt too much to walk. Shadow didn't know why she didn't come. But the next day, when Maya finally limped her way to the fence line, hadn't bark or growl. He just stood up and waited. Maya sank to the ground beside him, the pain in her leg flaring. She leaned against the wooden post, closed her eyes, and whispered, "He's getting worse." She lay down, pressing his body near hers without touching. His presence didn't fix anything, but it reminded her she wasn't invisible. It was bound to happen. Her father had followed her before, usually just to make sure she wasn't talking to strangers. But that day, something was different. Maya had left the house quickly, hoping he was still asleep. Hewan. He trailed her at a distance, bottle in hand, slurring curses under his breath. Maya didn't know he was there until she reached the edge of the field. She turned and saw him, stumbling behind her, eyes narrowed. "Where do y'all keep sneaking off to?" he growled. Her stomach dropped. She backed away, but he got up quickly, grabbing her by the arm. Then came the growl. Not from him, but from the shadows beyond the fence. Shadow emerged like a specter. Fur bristling, lips curled, teeth gleaming. His body was low, coiled, protective, his golden eyes locked onto the man-chant. Maya's father froze. "What the hell is that?" "Let me go," Maya whispered, voice shaking. Shadow stepped forward. The man released her arm, staggering back. "Crazy mud," he muttered, retreating. "You'll see what happens next time." He disappeared down the trail. Maya stood trembling. Shadow stayed between her and the path, unmoving. She fell to her knees and reached out. Not carefully this time, not slowly, but with trust. Shadow let her touch him, let her bury her face in his fur. He didn't lick her or wag his tail, but he stayed. That was enough. The next morning, Maya's arm was serene purple, a dark line where fingershad gripped too hard. Her father acted as if nothing had happened. He mad eags, rubbery, and whistled off key. Februuses were invisible to him, but Maya had changed. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. Instead, she waited, watched. Shek knew he would try to find Shadow, maybe even hurt him. He had said so, and this time she believed him. So she made Applin. At school, she borrowed a crumpled map from the library. At lunch, she didn't eat. She stored crackers in her jacket pocket. She found a plastic bottle and filled it from the water fountain. Each step quiet, precise, hidden. At night, she lay awake tracing through it in her mind. There was a woman, her mother. Once mentioned, someone who helped girls like us. Maya didn't remember the name, only the description. A red door, 3 wooden steps, and sunflowers painted on the mailbox. That was enough. The night she decided to leave, she packed her backpack with socks, a sweatshirt, the stolen map, and half a sandwich. She wrote no note. There was no one to read it. She waited until the TV was blaring and snoring filled the house. Then she slipped out, heart pounding, down the familiar trail toward the field. Jada was there, waiting. This time when he saw her, Hested quickly, alert, ready. "I'm leaving," Maya whispered, voice shaking but certain. "Will you come?" Jado didn't bark. Didn't hesitate. He simply stepped forward side by side. Not just following her path, but choosing it. The night air was thick with summer heat, heavy and done moving. Mia's sweatshirt clung to her back, soaked in nervous sweat. Her sneakers, too small now, pinched her toes with every step. But she didn't stop. She and Shadow moved quickly along the narrow trail, the moon flickering between tree branches like a broken floodlight. Crickets screamed from the underbrush. An owl hooted overhead. Every sound made Maya flinch. Behind her, the town slept, but Maya felt like the whole world was awake and watching. She clutched her backpack tightly, Onirm around the straps, the other brushing against Shadow's fur now Anthem, just to make sure he was still there. They crossed the field, then the creek. Shadow waded through the shallow water first, pausing at the other side to wait for her. Her socks squished in her shoes, but she didn't complain. Not tonight. She followed the old railway tracks for a while. Her mother had once said they led to a larger road, one with passing cars. She didn't know how far it was. She just kept going. And her passed. Then another. Maya's legs trembled. Her stomach growled. Her vision blurred at the edges. But Shadow never stopped. When she stumbled, he paused. When she sat, he stood guard. A tone point, she heard an engine far off. Her breath caught. She crouched in the bushes, heart pounding. Headlights flashed across the treetops, then faded. It wasn't him. Not yet. She whispered. Almost there. It wasn't true. She didn't know where there was, but it gave her strength to say it out loud. By the time the sky began to pale into a soft blue, they reached the edge of a highway. Maya dropped to her knees, exhausted. Shadow sat beside her, panting, his ears alert. Car appeared in the distance. Maya stood. She raised her hand and hoped. The car slowed for a moment. Maya panicked. What if it was him? What if it followed her after all? But the vehicle was small, clean, and driven by a woman with graying curls and soft, startled eyes. She rolled down the window. "Sweetheart, are you all right?" Maya didn't answer at first. Her throat was dry. Shadow moved closer, placing himself slightly in front of her. The woman's eyes flicked to the dog, but she didn't recoil. "Is he yours?" she asked gently. Maya shook her head, then nodded. "He's with me?" The woman stepped out of the car slowly, carefully. She didn't come closer, just knelt down on the roadside. "My name's Ellen. I'm a nurse. I'm not here to hurt you." Maya looked into her eyes and saw no lies, no pity either, just concern, warm and real. She whispered, "Can you take us somewhere safe?" Ellen nodded, opening the back seat. "Hop in, both of you." Shadow hesitated, but when Mia took a step forward, he followed. She curled into the seat, clutching her backpack. Shadow sat beside her, never breaking eye contact with Ellen. The car moved quietly down the empty highway, tires shumming against the asphalt. Ellen didn't speak right away. Minutes passed. Then Maya whispered, "You said you're a nurse?" "Yes, I used to work in a hospital. Now I volunteer with women's shelters." Mia looked down at her hands. Do you know places where kids can go? Not just for a night, but for longer. Yes, sweetheart. Places where you don't have to be afraid. Where people listen in, where no one ever lays a hand on you. My mom talked about a red door once. Said if anything ever happened to her, I should try to find it. She said there'd be sunflowers and safety. Ellen's eyes softened. I know that place. I'm taking you there. They won't send me back. Will they? No doubt not if you don't want to go back. And with what you've been through, you deserve better. Shadow 2. Ellen smiled. Of course, he stays with you. Maya let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. I don't want to be brave anymore, she said, voice cracking. I just want to be free. Ellen reached a hand toward the back seat. Not to touch, just to bother. You're not alone anymore, Maya. Not ever again. They pulled into a small building with a painted red door, just like the one in her mother's stories. Sunflowers danced on the mailbox inside. The room smelled of lavender and old books. A woman with glasses greeted them, not with surprise, but with welcome, as if she'd been expecting them. Maya was offered warm soup and clean clothes, a blanket, a bed. She accepted everything in silence, disoriented. Later that night, lying in clean sheets, Maya whispered into Federic, "We made it." Shadow curled up at her feet, thumped his tail once against the mattress. For the first time in her life, she slept without flinching. The days passed gently. No yelling, no footsteps to fear, no belt hanging on the doorknob. At first, Maya kept to herself. She watched the other children from corners, clung to Shadow like Hugh as her anchor. But no one forced her talk. No one cried. They waited. Every morning, someone left a cup of warm tea on her windowsill. Every night, a soft knock reminded her it was time for dinner. Slowly, Maya began to unfurl. She drew again. Not just dark scribbles, but pictures of trees, of a red door, of a dog with amber eyes. One day, she handed her drawing to the counselor. It was titled My Guardian. Shadow became something of a legend at the shelter. Gentle but watchful, he sat by the front door every afternoon until Maya returned from school. He never barked. He never wandered. The other kids started asking questions. Maya answered them. Then one day, she laughed. Just once, but it was loud and bright and real. At night, Maya still had dreams. Some were heavy and dark, but when she woke, Shadow was always there, his head resting near her feet. Healing wasn't quick. It was an effect, but it had begun. Spring arrived. At her new school, Maya stood in front of her classmates during storytelling hour, a folded piece of paper trembling slightly in her hand. She looked at the faces in the room, curious, open, waiting. My name is Maya, she began. I'm 10 years old. And this is my story. She didn't describe a very bruise. She didn't need to. Instead, she spoke about a dog in the shadows, a door painted red, and what it meant to be brave. Not loud, but steady. Not fearless, but free. I used to think I was invisible, she said, her voice stronger with every word. But I'm not. She unfolded the paper and held it up. It was a drawing. Her and Shadow standing under a sunflower with few words, "We don't run anymore. We rise." The room was silent, then applause, soft at first, then growing. After class, a girl tapped her shoulder. I liked your story, she said. You're really brave. Maya smiled. Not shy, not small, just proud. Later, under the oak tree behind the center, Maya sat with Shadow beside her. She opened her notebook and wrote with slow, careful strokes, I'm not as Shadow. I'm someone, and I get to decide what happens next. Shadow nudged her hand gently with his nose. And in Fatment, under a blooming sky, Maya finally felt it. She belonged.